Good morning and afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Carell, and welcome to our 1627th Justice Clearinghouse webinar. It's okay to not be okay, ways to cope with work-related stress. While conversations around mental health are certainly increasing, there's still a lot of work to be done. And during our webinar this morning, Doug Monda, a former narcotics agent and SWAT operator, will share how first responders can cope with trauma and cumulative stress. Doug will offer strategies to not just persevere, but truly thrive, both on the job and at home. Doug Monda is a retired narcotics agent and SWAT operator turned mental health advocate. He founded Survive First to support first responders and their families and co founded Trauma Behind the Badge. He also serves as a trustee for the Florida Police Chiefs Association's Education and Research Foundation. Now, I would like to extend a special thanks to our friends and partners for helping make this presentation possible. Today's webinar is done in partnership with Leads Online. We truly appreciate our partnership with an organization like Leads Online, who are so committed to enhancing and growing our profession. And now, briefly, before we begin, I'd like to share with you some information about Justice Clearinghouse. The Justice Clearinghouse is the only peer-to-peer multidisciplinary educational program for justice professionals that offers the instruction and skills necessary to achieve both individual and organizational transformation. Through our year-round virtual conference, our audience and members develop those critical skills that are necessary to positively impact themselves and their communities. And while anyone can attend our live events, our paid members are able to access our content on their own schedule, with over 1,600 recorded webinars, and are also eligible to receive certificates of attendance that may be used once you continue education credits. So if you're not presently a member, I'd invite you to join today and support our work. The last few things I'd like to address are some basic housekeeping items. First, this event is being recorded, and the formal presentation is scheduled to last about 60 minutes. It'll be available to the members on the Justice Clearinghouse website. Second, this is a listen-only event, but you can type in any questions that you have for Doug through the Zoom toolbar, and we'll take as many of those questions as possible at the end of the formal presentation. Now, of course, given the remote nature of webinars, Doug is not going to be able to read your body language. He's not going to be able to see if you're leaning forward or crossing your arms. So feel free to use the emojis on the React area on the Zoom toolbar to let him know how you're feeling about the information he's sharing. Now, I do want to caution everyone that the information shared through our webinar today is not intended to constitute mental health advice and should not be relied on in lieu of consultation with appropriate experts in your own jurisdiction. And then I do have a handout for this webinar, one that Doug prepared. You'll find that in the webinar chat and on the webinar resource page. And in the next couple of minutes, I will post that resource page in case you can't download it from chat. Finally, after today's webinar, there will be a follow-up survey, and we ask that you complete it. Your feedback is shared with our presenters and helps shape everything we do here at Justice Clearinghouse. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn the presentation over to our instructor for this morning. Doug, it's all yours.
You might hear me use the term cop because I've been a cop for so long that it's embedded into my speech, but this goes for everybody. And how I explain that is once upon a time, and you'll hear later in my story, I was injured pretty bad. And I spent several weeks in ICU, probably 11 weeks, 14 weeks, something like that. And alls I did was stare at the wall. No TV was allowed. And on the wall, and everybody should be familiar with this, was a poster board that had 10 smiley faces. And the first one would be smiling. The very last one, the number 10, would be the red, angry face. And the doctors and nurses would come in every day and they'd say, "What's your pain level at?" We've all seen this in the hospitals and our doctors. And I stared at this for a very long time, several weeks. And then one day it hit me when I was looking at it. It never said, "If you're a cop." It just said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain level at? And what I learned through that is trauma is a 10 for me is a 10 for anybody else. And I use my wife as an example. My wife was in the education, in the school system, and she taught disabled children how to communicate. She was a speech pathologist. And she would come home from work and she would tell me stories about kids and how they were bad and how they mistreated her. And I would always to myself downplay it. Like, are you kidding me? I just dealt with a dead baby. I just dealt with, horrible crashes, shootings, things of that nature. And I would play down her trauma. And so that's what kind of hit me was on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 is a 10 for anybody. And so let that just be known, whether you're a dispatcher, you're a cop, corrections, a secretary, any kind of thing like that. This goes straight across the board. So as long as I have that out there, I want to make sure that everybody is affected by this and can go through the same amount of stuff. So if you could switch over and play that video, and then we'll get started.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
Nine one one, location of your emergency. I probably won't be alive much longer.
It's everywhere. It's within your families, your neighbors, your friends.
Why do you want to kill yourself?
I didn't want anybody else to have to do or go through what I was going through.
My name is Doug Monda. I've been in law enforcement since early 2000, and my background mostly in my law enforcement career was spent most of it on a SWAT team. I was a team leader of a SWAT team. I was a sniper on the SWAT team for several years, and I was a narcotics agent, which took me to the end of my career.
You know, catching bad guys and helping people. Whatever it brings on a daily basis. And I'm an athlete. I've been an athlete my whole life. I was a professional athlete for years.
How you feeling? You tried to kill yourself.
Yeah, I did.
Was there anything anybody could say to you to stop you?
No. At work, I had got injuries. I broke my hand several times. I ripped my shoulder out of socket and had to have surgery. Cracked vertebrae, had to have 3 vertebrae replaced, and that was a lot of pain. Between the two, the mental pain and the physical pain, that was enough. That's ultimately what brought me to that point, was that pain that you can't medicate that pain. I couldn't get rid of it, and it caused exhaustion to the point where I couldn't ever escape it. I was so tired of being in pain physically and mentally, and nobody could tell me or anything or show me anything that could make it go away. And ultimately, in my mind, at that point, the only way I could be pain-free was to leave, was to leave, was to leave, was to leave.
After experiencing everything that I went through, I realized I had been given all the tools to perform a job, to help people. They give you that gun, badge, car, computers, all this stuff. I never had the tools to take care of myself.
That's what kind of brought it all together. That's why I go out and speak to people, so that they can see, like, hey, I'm still a SWAT guy. I'm still running a SWAT team. I'm currently a drug agent. I do great things here, and because somebody gave me a chance. And if they can see that I'm still doing that, and I'm still an athlete, and I'm competing again, then they can say, well, if he did it, and he got help, and he can still work and do it, then I can do it too.
Here we go. Sorry, I was on mute. Anyway, so after that quick video, that is me and all the stuff that I used to do, and I'm clearly not that young anymore, a few years older, but so anyway, I want to bring you what you see on the screen is my background. Who I was, and this is important when it comes to mental health. This is who I was before I entered the job workforce. And so I grew up in Central Florida, little old country town in the middle of Florida, and ultimately moved to the coast to Cocoa Beach, Florida, is where I live now, in high school. And about high school time, I turned professional in soccer. That was my gift. I was a really good soccer player, just in the wrong time. When I played soccer, it wasn't the financial level it is to this day. And I had transitioned into a marathon runner. Running was my thing, and it was really important to me. I love to run, and I love to push myself to, as I call, elite levels. That's where I found joy, was pushing myself into seeing what I could accomplish. And I equate that to people who have PhDs and master's degrees. You know, you push yourself to a certain level of achievement to feel good about yourself. I ultimately became a nationally ranked triathlete, a world champion triathlete. I've done things like Alcatraz. So I have swam from Alcatraz back to San Francisco 4 times. I'm a 4-time Ironman triathlon finisher, things like that. So, you know, that was my background coming into law enforcement. And when I came into law enforcement, I was still doing all this stuff. And I came into law enforcement around about almost 30 years old. And my coach was like, "Hey, bud, what are you going to do when you can't be an athlete anymore?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I thought I'd be an athlete my whole life. And he's like, "No, you got to have a career." And so I said, "Well, I always wanted to be on a SWAT team." Well, 3 days later, the application was on the kitchen table, and off I was to the world of becoming a first responder. Um, Aaron, if you can change the slide, please. So I came into law enforcement. I probably didn't do a year on the road in a regular uniform, and I was put on a street crimes unit. I was put on the SWAT team. I was recruited to the police department. Um, for the SWAT team. And I had some other training in there. I am a former Blackwater scout sniper, which was through the Marine Corps. And I spent most of my time in my career as a sniper, street crimes unit, gang task force, undercover narcotics agent. I spent a lot of my career as a task force officer working with ATF, FBI, DEA, you name it, anybody, as we call the alphabet soup. You'll even see places where I was assigned to NASA. I was a sniper for NASA at certain times, protecting dignitaries, and during the shuttle program, protecting the shuttle astronauts. So I got to do some pretty cool things in my career, but ultimately they would come with a price. And so when you see the awards, that's really irrelevant. The only thing that I really like, and that's just part of the things that I received in my career. But in 2016, I was Officer of the Year in Florida, and I got that award a year after I came back to work from my second suicide attempt. And I did return to work, and I returned at full duty. I continued to run a SWAT team. I continued to work as a drug agent. And I was given that award for starting a wellness program in my department, and also for arresting and convicting 149 drug dealers in 1 year. And and the reason for that was when I'd come back from work, from my suicide attempt. So I went to an inpatient treatment center my work had sent me to get help. And when I came back to work, I was healthy, I was happy, and that creates a whole different employee. When an employee comes to work and they're healthy and happy and their home life is healthy and happy, it is much easier to be a better employee. And for me, it was much easier to be a better cop. And I enjoyed being back at work because of being a police officer. I experienced some very traumatic things, which I'll get to in a minute. So, can you change the slide, please? So everybody loves this slide. If you can recognize the picture from the movie, The Water Boy, I have had that picture in this presentation for many years, and I put the picture in there because that's just the type of friend I am. I always was the crazy buddy that was like, hey, yeah, send me, I'll go kill the bad guy. And but what it refers to is mental pain and physical pain. And as the other day, I'm looking at this slide, I realized this picture actually has a lot to do with mental and physical pain. And so when I refer to mental and physical pain, they led to each other in my life. So going from an athlete at my level, and how my week as an athlete looked like, I ran about 50 to 70 miles. I biked 3 to 500 miles a week, and I swam about 30,000 meters plus a week. And that's more than most people drive. On top of that, I was working as a cop and I was raising a family. I had 5 children at home, and at one point, I had 6 children at home. And so I was a pretty busy guy working at a high rate, as I call it, 100 miles an hour. And basically, when I was in my career, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit on the trauma train, as I call it. I was at work one day, and a call came out of a reckless vehicle. And it was a vehicle, a truck. The description came out as a truck, and the dispatchers were putting out that it was trying to run people over, this truck. And so that's a pretty serious thing. In the law enforcement world, that could be considered deadly force. And then the dispatcher came out and said that the truck had struck a child on a big wheel, and it was in a neighborhood. And so that clearly changes the game. So I started to drive to the area, and I am a magnet for trouble in the law enforcement world, have been since the very first day I became a cop. And so I'm going the area. Out of a side street comes the truck. The truck almost T-bones me, and I begin to chase the truck. There's a patrol vehicle behind mine with a video camera on it. And this whole situation was on video. It made TV. It even made the Oprah Winfrey show. And I'm chasing this truck. We get to an intersection, and the truck spins out in the middle of the intersection. And it's just sitting there. So I jump out of my car because in the area that I worked at was a very high crime area. About 20,000 people, 17,000 were government housing projects and Section 8. So it was considered a high crime area. And a lot of times as a police officer, when cars wreck, bad guys wreck, they get out of the car and they take off running. Well, being the runner that I was, nobody ever outran me. So I was excited when the car wrecked, that it stopped by itself. And it appeared that the guy was going to get out and run. So I jumped out of my car to take off running. And all of a sudden, the truck took off and started coming straight towards me. And in my career, I've been here before. I know that this person is going to run me over. So I prepare myself next to my car, and my car was parked next to an oak tree. And as the truck was getting close to me, and you got to imagine this is only within seconds, as the truck is peeling out and coming at me, I cannot see the driver of the truck. I can only see the steering wheel. And it's kind of a confusing situation to be in. And as I'm looking at the steering wheel, I tell myself, okay, shoot the steering wheel. You'll hit the target. And I'm just thinking there's some big old country boy driving his big jacked up pickup truck coming to run me over. And right about the time I go to shoot the truck, the steering wheel area of the truck, a little head pops up from behind the steering wheel. And it was an 11-year-old child, and it was a very traumatic event. It was something that I had never experienced before. I had been involved in these situations. Clearly, I'm a sniper, and so most people understand what a sniper's job is. Um, and so, anyway, the kid ends up striking me. I decide not to shoot. I don't want to hit the little background, the little child, and the kid hits me, breaks my back, breaks multiple bones in my body, and then what I do is I ultimately end up on a couch by myself. Um, Alone home by myself. I just went through a divorce of 17 years. And so as I'm sitting there home by myself, what I discovered was that when you are not traveling at 100 miles an hour, and this goes for all careers, you will see quickly that it gives you all the time to think about the horrible things that you've seen in your career. And for me, that was quite a bit of things that I've seen, traumatic situations that I've seen in my career. The physical pain became mental pain, and the mental pain was piled on top of the physical pain of being in a wheelchair ultimately right away, not being able to take care of myself, and dealing with multiple surgeries ahead of me. So anyway, I spent some time alone. I became very dark, became very secluded from people, withdrawn. I felt like my life was over. And that's when I decided to take my life, or to attempt to take my life. And how that looks, a lot of people have a hard time understanding that. How do you be resilient to that? And so what I adequate that to is I call it September 11th pain. And as most of us remember, during September 11th, the people that were jumping out of the building, and, that was pretty shocking back then. Why would people be jumping out of the building? Well, they were jumping out of the building not because it was going to collapse, but because of the heat and the pain that they were incurring at this situation. So their only idea was to jump out of the building. And that's where I found myself at. I said it was time for me to jump out of the building, and that was the only way I was going to be able to escape this pain. And so that's ultimately what led me to that. Could you change the slide, please? So what I learned through this, and I'm going to jump ahead, and I don't want to make a big thing about my suicide attempt, but more or less the progression of it and becoming resilient to it and learning the tools to take better care of myself mentally. And one of the things that I learned was a thing called Groundhog Day. And as most people, as you can see the screen, you see Bill Murray, and we remember the movie Groundhog Day, if you saw it. And if you haven't, it's just a movie about a guy who wakes up every day and lives the same life over and over and over. And basically, in the movie, when he gets tired of living the same life over and over, he decides to try to take his life because he gets sick and tired of the same life and the same day-to-day stuff. And what I learned through therapy was this was one of the things that first responders go through. And we'll use a police officer as an example. As a police officer, you're going to wake up every day you're going to put on the same uniform every day of your life. You look the same, you get in the same car, you go to work, and you do the same thing every day. And when it deals with the high level of trauma that police officers are involved in, that becomes pretty traumatic just in itself of the everyday occurrence, and it becomes very tiring and exhausting. And so what I had to learn to do was to break the monotony of the Groundhog Day. Because what it was doing was I would come home and I would be mentally exhausted and I would have nothing left in the tank for my family. So I had to learn how to transition from coming home from work back into the family man and to dad. As I learned, my children, they never saw the leader of a SWAT team. They never saw the sniper. They just saw dad coming home. And I had to learn how to, readjust and to transition into the home life. And that was very difficult for me to do. And so that brings me to my next slide. If we can change the slide, that'd be great. Perfect. This is the second metaphor I was telling you about. We'll spend a little bit more time here. It's called the wheelbarrow effect. And what I learned was in my career, you basically, and this goes for any career, you basically start your career with an empty wheelbarrow, just like the one on the left of your screen. And it's an empty wheelbarrow, and anybody who's pushed an empty wheelbarrow knows how easy it is. And you could throw your kid, your spouse in it and run them around the yard and have a good time. But as the wheelbarrow gets heavy, and you load a wheelbarrow up and it becomes really heavy, it's very difficult to push. And if you lean a little left or lean a little right, the wheelbarrow is going to dump. It's going to lose its balance. It's going to fall over, and everything in the wheelbarrow is going to go flying on the ground and cause a disaster. And how that looks like for most of us is not a bunch of rocks or stones going on the ground. It looks like domestic violence. It looks like alcoholism, drug addiction. It looks like not taking care of yourself, not eating correctly, not, all those type of things. In our industry, police officers, first responders, they have a hard time with sleep. So they'll use alcohol and they'll use drugs, not drugs like street drugs, but a lot of cops are addicted to NyQuil and Tylenol PM and Xanax and things of that nature. And so that's what the wheelbarrow looks like for most people when it dumps for us. And so the other part was I would find myself, and here's something that I would ask everybody to pay attention to very closely. I would come home from work, and when I would come home from work, I would pull into the driveway. And when I would pull into my driveway, I had a beautiful home on the water. I had everything I had ever wanted in life. I had collected all the toys. I would pull into my driveway and I'd have sports cars and all the fancy things and stuff that you think would make you happy when you got home to see. My children would come running out of the house and they'd be so excited. Daddy's home, daddy's home. And hey, dad, let's play. I couldn't even get out of the car. But what would take place is I would pull into the driveway. And as soon as I would pull in the driveway, I would just take a big, deep breath. Oh, crap. I got to go inside and now I got to deal with this crap. And I assure you, it wasn't those nice words. And that was because I was physically and mentally exhausted when I came home from work. It wasn't that I didn't want to see my kids or see my home. That's what I had been wanting all day long. But what I found myself doing is when my kids would run out and they'd want to play with dad, I would tell my kids, no, son, I'm too tired. Go play in your room and I'll catch up with you later. And that's kind of hard to sell to your kids when you're running 70 miles a week and biking. They don't see dad as ever being tired, but I was mentally exhausted. and I was missing the main objective, and that was to come home and to be dad. That's really what your main job is. For me, it was, and to be a spouse or whatever it is you have at home, in your safe place. And so I had to learn how to empty that wheelbarrow out. And I had a very difficult time with it. But here's the issue. When you get home and you dump that heavy work wheelbarrow in the driveway, the next thing you do is you pick up the work life or the home life wheelbarrow. And I usually use this example. When you have a personal wheelbarrow, I use the example of a spouse. Most people, when they meet their spouse, they're just the greatest thing ever. You can't wait to see them. You can't wait to talk to them, text them. If you're as old as I am, you couldn't wait to call them on the dial phone, but things like that. And they're just amazing. They're the greatest thing ever, your spouse, when you meet them. And you decide to join together and you pick up that life wheelbarrow together, you on one side, your significant other on the other side of the wheelbarrow, and you start life. And most people, the first things that go into the wheelbarrow are just some regular life drama. Most people put a puppy, I joke. Most new couples get a puppy, and that becomes stressful. And then there's rent, and rent turns into mortgage, and mortgage turns into bills, and bills turn into doctor bills and sicknesses and health. And that wheelbarrow starts to build up and build up and build up. And what takes place is that so much stuff stacks up in the wheelbarrow that you lose the ability to look over and see who's on the other side of the wheelbarrow. And that's what I learned was damaging my home life, was that I couldn't see on the other side of the wheelbarrow. And if you're married, that's why a lot of marriages fail, because we forget who that person is on the other side of the wheelbarrow. But I assure everybody, that person on the other side of the wheelbarrow is still the same person that you met on day one. We just forget who that person is. And we have to learn, and I had to learn myself, was how to empty that wheelbarrow out. And how you do that is, there's multiple ways. I don't have the way, but I have a way. And for me, that was getting back to the things that brought me joy. And when I say that brought me joy, that was the things that brought fun into my life: surfing, fishing, riding my bike, running and swimming. And there was pockets where I didn't get to do that because of injuries. So that was difficult. So I had to learn different ways. And then I had a wife later on in my career, and I would have to do the same thing with her. We would have to learn how to empty that wheelbarrow together. And so what we would do is we would do things to break up the monotony of Groundhog Day for both of us and to empty that wheelbarrow. And for us, it looked like riding a bike. We ended up getting a tandem bike where we rode the bike together, just me and her, and we could talk and laugh, and it brought us closer together. We would tandem kayak. We would take the dog for a walk up to the beach, things like that. And that's how we learn to empty our wheelbarrow out a little bit. And so maybe that's something you can do, or you can look into the things that bring you joy. Don't lose sight of the things that bring you joy. I tell people all the time, peace and joy are very powerful things. When a country doesn't have peace, they usually go to war. And when you don't have peace in your brain and in your mind, you will go to war with yourself. And I warn most police officers that I speak to, the one person you will never be able to beat is yourself. I also learned that you couldn't fix the problem with the same mind that created it when it came to mental health. So take the time to look for the things that bring you joy, because sometimes our careers take us away from that. Our children take us away from that. We spend so much time working and running a household that we forget to take care of ourselves. And one of the important things that you need to understand is you cannot save somebody else if you can't save yourself. You cannot take care of your kids, if you have them, as good as you should if you cannot take care of yourself as good as you should. So there are very important factors in there. And also on the groundhog effect, one of the things that I did to break up that monotony was a simple little task. I would, every Monday on the way to work, I would make a list of about 5 to 7 people from my phone. And every day on the way home from work, I would call somebody random, a fishing buddy, a surfing buddy, a triathlete buddy, somebody like that, my older brother. And I would just, the phone would pick up and I'd say, hey, tell me something good that's going on in your life, because it was somebody I cared about. And it could just be, oh, well, I asked this question recently to a lady, and she said, my daughter caught her first fish on her Barbie fishing pole. And the whole audience laughed and smiled. And I said, wow, see that simple little phone call to ask somebody, tell me something good in your life, brought joy to me and everybody else in that room. So those phone conversations helped. And if the phone conversation went bad and somebody said, I don't have anything good going on in my life, then I would say, well, let's come up with a plan together. Let me help you help, with your problems. And that would help break the monotony of work and help me get back into more of a personal life. So if you can, try maybe some of those tools right there. Aaron, can you change slide, please? So here's 6 focus areas for coping with work-related stress. Obviously, mind and body techniques, and you'll have the printout. Everybody should receive the printout of what that looks like. And mind-body techniques, deep breathing or box breathing. And a lot of people think, man, I breathe every day. Well, a lot of times when you're under stress, it affects your breathing. And when your breathing's affected, that's going to affect your body in a whole. Less oxygen, less decision-making capabilities, things of that nature. Meditation and mindfulness. Those are very important things. There's many tools out there to meditate. And meditation doesn't mean you have to sit on a beach or sit with your legs crossed and hum. Meditation can look very different to everybody. And it could just be staring at the sun or the moon or the sky, or staring at nature. Things like that can help you meditate and calm yourself. The other thing is physical wellness. Physical wellness is probably the most important thing that you can do in taking care of yourself, because you got to understand that the long journey of life puts a lot of wear and tear on your body. And even when you're going through mental health issues, the pain and the wear and tear on your brain also is putting wear and tear on your body. And the ultimate goal is to get it to a point in life where you can retire and enjoy your life, your children, your grandchildren, and you want to be able to make it there healthy and happy. So those are important factors. Taking care of your physical wellness. That includes blood pressures and diabetes and eating right, things like that happen to us in our industries. Emotional wellness. Emotional wellness, that can be dealt with several different things. Journaling, creative outlets, music, arts and hobbies, things like I said, find your joy, remember those things. Practicing gratitude. Be grateful for the things you have. It's very easy for us here in America to forget how great we have it. And I always tell people, I learned how great I had it when I went to Africa. And just go through a town like Sudan or Ethiopia, and you'll quickly be reminded of how great your life really is. Connection and support, peer support, is always great through your organization. Maintaining your relationships outside of your profession is very important, especially in the law enforcement world. I tell guys, when you hang out with cops, all you're going to do is talk cop stuff, and that's not healthy. You've got to keep those relationships. Family communication, that is one of the most important things in life is communication with your family. And I failed miserably at that with communicating with my children. And I had no idea they always knew that there was something wrong with their dad. And they didn't know what, but they knew something was wrong. And they didn't understand what post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety and depression was like. And that's what I was titled with, or whatever the term is. And there's also, participate in your community, however it looks like to you. If you have a faith, participate in that, be active in that, be active in your community and things of that nature. Professional services. I mean, listen, counseling or therapy, those things are very important. Hard for us to do, hard for first responders, and I say us big macho guys to say, hey, I need therapy. But somebody told me something very, very simple. One of my coworkers said, Doug, if you break your leg, what do you do? And I said, I would go to the doctor and get my leg fixed. He said, well, if you break your arm, what do you do? I said, I would go to the doctor and get my arm fixed. And he said, well, if you break your head, what do you do? And I looked at him and I said, nothing. And he said, exactly. So it's no different going to make sure that your head is correct than being than not dealing with it. Make sure that that is taken care of. That is very important, that you take care of your mental health and you take care of your brain. It's the most important part of your body. It's the driving force of yourself. Set healthy lifestyle habits. Healthy lifestyle habits are very important. Set boundaries between home and work life. That's the most important thing you can do. I use this term, don't spend so much time doing your job that you don't come home to do your job. And that was what I did. I spent so much of my life, so much time doing my job that I was never home doing my job. And that can cause catastrophic issues within your personal life. So manage your time between work and home life, and that will help you to avoid burnout. It will help avoid Groundhog Day, and it'll also help from that wheelbarrow getting overflowed. Little simple things like, staying healthy, staying hydrated, not drinking coffee and Monsters and Red Bulls and things of that nature all day. Take care of yourself. That is the most important thing you can do, is take care of yourself. So that's some quick little pointers I can give you on coping with work-related stress. You will be able to print this out, or have the things that we just talked about, and keep them available and look through them every once in a while, and share them and talk with your coworkers, because if your coworkers are happy and healthy and you're happy and healthy, it's going to make for a better work environment, which is also going to make for a better day, which is going to make for a better ride home, to be a better home life as well. Can you change the slide, please? So my wife always uses this term, there's always hope. There's people who are going through it, people who have gone through it, people who are going to go through it. But she always tells everybody there's always hope. There's always hope that things will get better and that you can do better. And that is very important. Make sure that you have hope and faith. And that is one thing that has carried me thus far, is having hope and faith that things will get better and stay better. And stay strong in my faith. And that is kind of one of the strongest tools that has helped me become more resilient, because what I thought was resiliency once upon a time for me wasn't. Being tough, being highly trained at everything I did, those weren't the things that saved my life. Winning championships, the gold medal that I have at home from being a world champion, that had nothing to do with it. It was the things that we talked about. And so anyway, that's about it, for this resiliency part of it. And Aaron, if you're ready, we can jump into some of these questions.
Doug, first of all, thank you so much for just, man, sharing and being vulnerable. I can only imagine some of the comments that I've seen. People are echoing and totally understand where you're coming from. And so I hope some of the techniques that you share will end up finding their way into people's lives and end up helping.
I
Folks,
hope
we
so
do
too.
have time for questions. I probably can accept about 4 or 5 more questions if you'd like to get them into the webinar chat. And then I wanted to make sure everyone knew that our next related webinar is coming up on September 25th. It's going to be about stress and supervisors, how they interact. I just posted a link to that registration page. I hope everyone can join us for that one. All right, Doug, if you're ready, I'd love to start working our way through these questions.
Yes, I'm ready.
Super. Our first question is, what are some tips for the in the instant moment when you feel panic approaching? How do you talk yourself out of it or down from it?
The first thing you have to do is breathe. When you start to panic and you start to get anxiety and things like that, like you said, the first thing you have to do is you have to stop and tell yourself, take a deep breath and breathe. It's the most important thing you can do. And I learned that as a sniper, was breathing techniques. So the first thing is you got to make sure that oxygen's getting to your head, and you have to remain calm, because we have a saying in the special operations world: slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And so slow down, look around, be aware of your surroundings, and then clear your head. Do some breathing, calm your body, your nervous system down, and that should open up the window for you to make a better decision and to handle what's in front of you.
Outstanding. And I know you mentioned breathing during the presentation. Can you just very quickly explain what that is?
I am horrible at explaining box breathing, but it is taking your breath from your diaphragm. So basically emptying all your air and filling your lungs up with air, slowly and methodically, not, fast, blow all your air out, bring all your air in. That's the simple way, I would say, the cop version of box breathing.
Got it. Perfect. And I've heard some people say, it's you take 4 seconds to breathe in, 4 seconds, hold it, 4 seconds to let it out, hold it for 4 seconds, and then repeating that.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
and just breathing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Somebody said Aaron nailed it. Yeah, you did much better than me. And the
I
other
have
guy,
the
I'm more of a combat breather, so than
I
a
have the
box breather.
blessing of being on webinars, so I totally understand. All right, our next question is what did you find to be the most effective treatment? I've tried brain spotting, but wondering if there's other treatments that might help with working in a toxic working environment.
Yes. Well, so uh, brain spotting is a technique that a therapist used. That was the best tool for me. Is I had to go to a professional who would give me the tools, and there's tons of modalities out there, from EMDR, which is, they're all basically kind of close in the same, brain spotting. There's even yoga, which is in the same lines. There's many things of that nature that you can do. I personally do brain spotting, and the reason for that is to help remove some of the bad memories that I have that are in my brain from combat and, from just day-to-day trauma from the job.
Got it. And again, that's brain spotting. You do that in conjunction with your therapist. Is that right?
Yes, yes, that's something that is provided through therapy. Yes.
Super. Okay. Next question. How do you force yourself to make the time to put yourself first while being a father, husband, and a full-time employee?
Yes. So just like any other thing we do, if you only at the end of the week, and I get it, I raised 5 kids. I was a single dad for about 5 years, also with 5 kids, and very difficult. I understand it. But even if it's 30 minutes, if it's 10 minutes a day, if it's 10 minutes before everybody wakes up, and go into your backyard and just put your feet in the grass and stand there and look up at the sky, make plans. It is imperative. It comes back to, you cannot be the parent you should be, and you cannot save yourself or save someone else if you can't save yourself. So it is imperative that you are the best version, is the term that I use. You have to be the best version of yourself in order to be the best version for your family and your kids, especially if you're talking about that. So make a calendar time. Same thing with your spouses. You put appointments in your calendar. I have a doctor's appointment between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. I can't do anything that day, or I have a Zoom call. Put that in your calendar. I'm blocking this hour out Sunday afternoon for myself, or I am blocking Friday evening out, or Saturday, or whatever day. And me and my significant other, we're going to dinner, and we're going to leave our phones in our pockets, and we're going to take time to recover and to be with ourselves.
Outstanding. Okay. Next question. Given the demands that we have on our time, how do you stay consistent with exercise?
Yes, that is that is the most difficult thing I probably have ever encountered in my life, is consistency with exercise. And also, exercise, what I was doing was not exercise. What I was doing was beating myself to death, wearing my knees out, and all kinds of other body parts. But, and a walk around the block is an exercise. Walk around the yard a little bit, whatever the expectation of time frame. I tell people, a lot of people ask me that question, and I say, go buy a spin bike, like one of them Peloton bikes. And I said, everybody watches 30 minutes of TV. Everybody plays on their phone for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, scrolling through Facebook or whatever it's called. Get on a spin bike and do it while you're pedaling the bike. I mean, that's one simple task that you can do, or just, go outside and walk around. It's better than sitting on the couch and scrolling through your phone. That's a form of exercise.
Super. All right. We got time for a couple more questions, I think. Next one goes to Haley. Haley says, I often hear from people, you chose this profession, you knew what you're getting yourself into. So how do you help others, such as the public, to have empathy and understanding of the consequences of these professions?
Well, what I learned through that, and I've had that told to me too. And yes, of course, right. But nobody expects the level of trauma that happens. When I became a police officer, I had no idea that I would be deployed to Hurricane Katrina and would have to see bodies floating down the street. I had no idea I was going to kick doors in of homes to see parents floating with their children. That is nothing that anybody can prepare you for. But the most important thing, and I use that example to people who say that, and we understand that we sign up for it. But what I've learned, what bothered me the most, and what bothers most people, is, one, in law enforcement, the lack of humanity. I mean, just put the news on currently, or put on social media, and you just see influx of trauma going on in our country and in the world, and what that does to you. So I'm losing focus on the question here. I apologize.
No, that's fine. It's, I think you've answered it. It's how do you respond to others who frankly have no empathy for what you experience as a law enforcement officer?
Yeah, you don't. You just do the best you can in any career. In any career that happens. A doctor doesn't become a doctor and he knows that he's going to lose patients, or a surgeon. But when it comes time, and this is that Groundhog Day and that wheelbarrow effect, time and time and time, it wears you down. And when it wears you down, it wears the resiliency to that. And so that's what affects us mostly.
Super. All right. Well, I know I said I only had a couple more questions, but there's some really important ones that just came through. Next one is, how do you climb out of a deep depression once you're sucked into it and still stay under the radar?
Ask for help. And that is the biggest thing that we fail to do, is ask for help, somebody to help. And I will tell you a quick little kind of like story that was told to me. A guy falls into a very deep, dark hole, and he can't get out. And he's down in this dark hole. And all of a sudden, he sees a guy at the top of the hole look down, and he goes, "Hey, can you help me out?" And the guy goes, I'm a doctor. I can't help you out, but I can write you a script." And he throws a script down in the hole. The next guy walks up, and it's a firefighter. And he says, "Fireman, can you help me out of this hole?" And he says, "No, I can't, but I can run to the or the fire station and get a ladder." The next guy that walks by the hole is a police officer. And he goes, "Hey, officer, I'm stuck in this deep, dark hole. Can you help me?" And the first thing the cop does is he jumps in the hole. And the guy goes, "Great, now we're both in this deep, dark hole." And the cop looks at him and says, "Yeah, we are, but I know the way out." And so the moral of that little story is there's plenty of people that know the way out. There's loved ones, there's best friends, there's faith in our religions, there's therapy, there's things. We just have to make the decision to ask for help. I mean, we ask for help for anything in our lives, whether it's help take out the trash, help me lift something. There's no difference in saying, "Hey, can you help me get out of this hole? I'm stuck and I need help."
Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
All right, couple more questions. How do you get first responders to really listen to this information? I often see them dismiss it and man up responses, even to the point of making fun of those who are receptive.
Yes, and that is a very difficult task. If you cannot get the message through to people, because some people just don't want to hear it, and that's okay, that's their choice. So what I tell people is, let them see it through you. And that was one thing that happened in my police department, is when I came back to work, people saw the new Doug. They saw the old guy that they used to know. They saw somebody healthy and happy again. And I infected my coworkers. And I would be happy all the time, and I would tell them, and I would cheer them up, and I would spend a lot of time, lifting them up in some sort of way. And so people just saw it in through example. And if you're in a work environment that you don't have that, it's, every now and then, put pictures on the wall, send emails out and go, "Hey, I found this and this has helped me. I just want to share it with you," whatever it takes, because it's much easier to do that than it is to deal with somebody that has something tragic happen to them, or like I did, and try to take my life, and the way it affected my loved ones and my coworkers.
Okay. Our last question is going to go to Tyler. How did you find new purpose in life after an LEO career?
Ooh, that's a good one. It is the most important thing for somebody in the first responder world, and in the law enforcement world for me, especially in being a cop, is purpose. And I didn't do very well when I retired. I thought I was going to fish and I was going to sit on the beach, and I had no purpose. And it really messed with my head. And so, luckily enough, I had this in my life, helping other cops, and I've continued to do this now. I've been retired, I think, 7 years. So that is also important, to find your joy. The things that bring you joy in life, those are things that can help you bring a purpose. And the most important thing is, your purpose in life is you. Make sure that you're happy, you're taken care of first, and that should be your ultimate purpose, is that, what do I need to do today that's going to make me happy and healthy so that I can be the best version of myself?
Doug, thank you again for sharing everything that you did today. Thank you to Leads Online for making this webinar possible. Any closing comments you'd like to share with our audience?
No, I would just say, yeah, do the best that you can do to be the best version of yourself. Not the best employee, not the best parent, not the best friend, just the best version of yourself. Take care of yourselves. People need you. Don't let this world bring you down. Stay happy, stay healthy. If there's anything that we can do for you, the information is all spread out there. We're just a phone call away. Don't be scared to ask for help, and take care of yourself.
Very, very, very well said, Doug. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to join us. Please take care of yourself and stay safe. Goodbye for now.